Hey, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. I want to talk a little bit about this indie game called Undivine from Dead Pick Studios and Brainium Games, and I do want to thank the developers for providing me with a review code on the Xbox Series X to give this one a go and talk about it. This one got my attention because it's clearly inspired by what I call symphony-likes. So not metroidvania, too imprecise of a term. I want to talk about, I specifically like games inspired by Symphony of the Night, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, that have that Metroid-like layout, but also have like XP that you can spend on abilities. You can kind of grind up your character, make them more powerful, upgrade them with loot and armor and things like that. And there are a number of games that kind of go in that direction, but not quite all the way. There are very few that actually recreate the formula that I love about the games in the Symphony of the Night Castlevania series of games. And Undivine comes very close to checking all the boxes that I want, closer than most that would maybe describe themselves as metroidvanias. I don't know that they would describe themselves that way. In fact, let me pull up their description for this game. Oh, okay, my mistake. Yeah, they say on the PlayStation Store page, Undivine is a dark metroidvania with RPG elements, yep, all sounding good, that will challenge your courage and wits. Step into a world shrouded in mystery and desolation where every corner hides dangers and ancient secrets. The world of Undivine is filled with relics, items, NPCs, bosses, secrets, and much more, all waiting to be discovered. It's a world ready for you to explore. Known only as the Traveler, you arrive at the outskirts of a desolate village. The people there live in fear of a giant hole that is open in the middle of the village, swallowing most of its residents. Brave warriors have attempted to venture into the chasm, but none have returned. With no other choice, you descend into the abyss, only to find a vast, interconnected world filled with mysteries and mysticism. It is up to you to discover its secrets. Will you be able to face the one behind it all? Combat, they say, in Undivine is fast and satisfying. Use everything at your disposal to face the many enemies you will encounter. Relics, swords, armor, and accessories have unique features that will change the way you play the game. Combine sword attacks with the power of your relics to execute combos and escape from enemies' attacks. Find the best combination that suits your playstyle. So, reading this description, I was like, dang, this sounds like it's got a good amount of depth to it. That maybe will make good on the claim that it has RPG elements. Of course, so many games have RPG elements. So does this game actually feel like an action RPG in the way that Symphony of the Night does? Well, like I said, more than most that use the Metroidvania moniker. This one is like Metroid and Symphony of the Night in that it has those vertically oriented areas where falling down doesn't mean dying, it means dropping down into a new area. It's like both in that it has these unlockable traversal abilities granted through the relics that you find. The controls, as this action platformer type experience, they feel pretty good and responsive in the way that I would hope. However, the movement is stuck to the left stick. How you control your character going left, right, it's on the left stick. With the crosspad usable in menus, but for some reason not usable as a way to control your character, which I dislike. I'm baffled by this, but I have mostly adjusted. The important elements feel great in the controls. The platforming has that right amount, for me, of graceful bounciness without feeling like floaty in an unwieldy way like playing Luigi in Super Mario Bros. 2, I love jumping around in Undivine, and so far, although the platforming does have some mild challenges and rare instances of mild frustration, it mostly feels fun and not out to give me this hardcore, punishing platforming experience, which I'm grateful for. You also do, fairly early on, gain a dash ability, like a mid-air dash, that is useful, of course, to traverse and access new areas, but also just in general, and when you're navigating around enemies and spikes and stuff like that. Even earlier than that, the first ability you get is this conjure ability that's mostly going to be used to activate gates that open up, and some very mild puzzle solving. I don't like puzzles, and I don't feel like any of the puzzles in this game were like frustrating or difficult at all to figure it out. It was pretty obvious, what you need to do, but it varies up the gameplay just enough to give it some variety. It's like Symphony of the Night in that it there's like XP and currency that you can gain that will allow you to buy things, XP that allow you to unlock abilities like passive increases to health and damage, but it's got hard limits. It's not like gaining a level in an RPG where you just all of your abilities get a little bit of a static boost. No, it's not. You have a limited ability to pump XP into doing more damage or taking more damage. So it lacks that true XP level grinding potential, which I always like in action games because I suck at action games. And so to know that I can always lean on my patience and my willingness to grind enemies endlessly in order to mitigate the difficulty or the pushback of the game, that is a big selling point for me in the Symphony-like style of game. And so the fact that they don't quite give me that here makes a significant difference for me personally. I know it won't make near as much of a difference to other people, but for me it does. So yeah, you can gain XP and currency to spend it on things, but to a limited, very exhaustible degree. That includes so far faster attacks, more damage dealing, more health. This cartography ability, which I feel like is more like purchasing quality of life, because it allows you to notate on the map or have notated on the map where the save points are, where the teleport points are. And, you know, by the way, like Symphony of the Night, when you save, you get all your health and your magic back. So there's still that kind of like push your luck. How deep into the dungeon can I go before I can reach the next save point? You know, so it's still got that nice vibe to it. But yeah, the cartography shows on the map where those places are. You can upgrade levels in cartography so that you can put your own markers on the map. But for me, I'm like, I don't really want to have to unlock that. I feel like this type of game should just come with that standard. So that felt a little like, I don't know. You can upgrade your inventory capacity. You can reduce the cost of future abilities that you purchase. You can remove fall damage. There are many more. I've only unlocked maybe half of the potential abilities you can unlock. The rest I can't tell you about at this point because they're left obscured, and like all of my my game review content, this is really just first impressions based on the 3 hours I've played so far of Undivine. But yeah, I do wish that they would not obscure the other abilities I can unlock in the future, because as it is, it prevents truly strategic build creation and the ability to, as much as possible, mitigate my weakness as a crappy action game player. There are potions you can find and a limited supply to buy. Again, that's disappointing. I wish that the shopkeepers that you do eventually find had an unlimited supply, that you could just keep grinding to buy more and more potions. That would I could settle for that too, but no, that's not an option here. So grinding cannot ultimately save you from difficulty in this game. You have to trust the developers, which I always have trouble with no matter who they are, because who knows whether or not deeper into the game they just have this crazy stupid spike in difficulty that's going to be really frustrating to me. So maybe see if other reviewers who've played the whole game and focus their content like I tend to do on difficulty elements will give you some more specific information about that. I'm 3 hours into this game. I'm doing okay on the lowest of 3 difficulty settings, so they do give you options there. But again, too much is obscured for me to trust that I'll be able to see the game through without hitting an unforeseeable difficulty spike down the line. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to finish the game, but it makes me hesitant to dedicate time to it without having that safety net of XP grinding that I know I can fall back on. There's some good vibes in this game. I like the music. The title screen has this sacred medieval men's choir that's really cool. And the music in the game, it's, you know, less produced certainly. It's got some minor mode musical nods to Castlevania type of music, but I mean, it's nothing like the intricacy of those tracks or the memorable, catchy nature of the music in the Castlevania series. But still, it's appropriate to, I think, the mood they're trying to set of mystery and of slightly dark and gothic. Then again, I don't have a great sense of the world they're trying to present to me here, because the visuals, although there are some subtly modern lighting effects, the sprites of your character, the NPCs you run into, the enemies, they have fewer pixels than most NES games, like original NES games. Like, it's somewhere between, I feel like, Atari and NES in terms of the sprites, not in terms of all the iconography and all that kind of stuff, but in terms of the sprites. I'm like, oh man, it just doesn't have quite as much detail as I'd like. It prevents an aesthetic or a design of the world from really coming to the surface in an identifiable way for me. And even when the aesthetic is like retro pixelated, I feel like I understand more of the gothic character of the world in the original Castlevania than I do in Undivine. So I wish it was just a little bit more detailed. Anyway, so let's talk about the themes, though. That was something that really grabbed me about this and made me curious, something I'm still curious about. It's got this name Undivine. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean not divine, or does it mean was divine and it is made no longer divine? Who is this referring to? Is it referring to the ultimate enemy you're going to face? You? Something about the world? But like any kind of like derivative of the word divine makes me think, are they going to have some kind of a theological idea that they're going to present here? Some kind of a commentary that would be subtly parallel to thoughts about real-world religious beliefs? I don't know. I was very curious. And then the magic ability that you gain to kind of unlock doors and do some damage to enemies from a distance is called Macula, which almost sounds like immaculate. And there are other elements, other terms in the game with very faint resemblance to real-world religious or philosophical words and ideas. But it's all very vague and going for a mysterious vibe to the point of just kind of going in one ear and out the other for me. It's possible that it'll ramp up and have something philosophical or theological to say later in the game, but so far it seems only interested in teasing with aesthetics and vaguely spiritual-sounding sentiments or phrases. So sadly, nothing to report on there, even though I was really hoping to, man, with a name like Undivine. But if I see the game through the rest of the way, I'm sure I'll be reporting on that on the Christian Geek Central podcast in the Geek Week segment. $10 seems about right. That's what this one is priced at. That seems right, assuming the rest of the game's quality, the experience remains consistent for me. But my jury, like I said, is still out. I'm having a good time, but not so good that I'm feeling pulled to continue right now. I might pick away at this one from time to time and eventually finish it. I think that's a decent possibility. But between the visuals and the character growth options not being quite what I'd personally prefer, Undivine is not a game I'm positive that I will be finishing, despite liking a number of things that it does. So anyway, I guess those are all of my thoughts for now on Undivine. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.